Good morning. Thanks everybody for coming out today to hear a little bit about the process that the city is using to engage our community in feedback through our legislative process. We kicked off the city's budget process in January, so it may seem like having a conversation like this in the beginning of August is out of place. But in order to get into the state's budget process, now is exactly the right time for us to be having this kind of a conversation. We used a process similar to this when we did our budget, having a series of community listening sessions where we could let the public tell us a little bit about what they wanted to see included in our city budget process. And we liked that process enough back then that using it for the state legislative process, we thought was an important opportunity. None of this, and this won't come as a surprise to this room, people who are working in the nonprofit sector who have to work with government on a regular basis to do the work that you do. We wish the processes that we had were a little bit more straightforward, a little more intuitive, but it's often understanding the steps that you have to go through, and that's what we want this morning to be a little bit about. A chance for you to hear a little bit about the process that we need to go through, but more importantly for us to hear from you about where you think the city's legislative priorities ought to be organized. We can't do many things in the city of Frederick without the support of our state legislative partners, and we are really fortunate in Frederick to have great leadership and support from our state senator, Karen Lewis Young, and our state delegates, Chris Fair, Ken Kerr, and Karen Simpson. There are a number of different ways in which we try and leverage that state support for our community. It can be critical infrastructure projects. We have received support in the past for flood control, for example, for stadium improvements, for our police department. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the details of those opportunities that we've seen. They are looking to use the state's resources to help enhance the quality of life for our residents in the city of Frederick. When we're talking about significant projects, we know that we can't do them all by ourselves. We want and need the state to be a partner in making these opportunities for our community as well. We're also looking at the state support as a way to enhance economic development opportunities in our community. So it really does run the spectrum of support for quality of life, economic development, and how we can maintain that kind of community that we want to be. So there's a number of different ways in which the support from the state can come. It can look like a capital budget request. This is often the easiest and most straightforward way because this is actually putting that request into the governor's office and having the governor include it in his proposed budget for the upcoming year. The second role in which we've had success over the years, and many of you in the nonprofit community have used this as well, is appealing to the legislature through local bond initiatives. So getting our state delegation to buy into a particular project or something that we may want to achieve as a community. These are generally not as large an ask as those capital budget requests, but it is another role in which you can get the funding into the state's budget. The third area is through miscellaneous grants. There are allocations made on an annual basis across many departments in the state, and those departments have access to buckets of money that there are our opportunity at the local level to tap into. We have a legislative advocacy team that works on the city's behalf in Annapolis, and a lot of that is about building relationships. So our ability to have success in any one of these three areas is really about building the relationships with the governor's office, the legislative leadership, the appropriate committee chairs, cabinet level officials, and their key supports that work out in the community. Any one of these can potentially be a tool for us to achieve funding for priority projects that we want. So we have received over the last couple of years, and honestly, the last couple of years has been when the city really engaged in this process with a little bit more intention. I would say prior to my becoming mayor, we certainly have relationships with our state delegation, but we did not have as targeted or robust a effort within the city itself to make asks and to identify legislative priorities in the city of Frederick to go after either legislative changes or budget asks. So this whole process for the city, and frankly with you in the room now, is relatively new. We want to make sure that as we move forward, we are sitting around the table as the second largest city in the state of Maryland, and one that we know through our conversations with the governor's office, they're very interested in seeing Frederick succeed. It means a lot to the state to have a successful Frederick anchoring this part of the state. But as you can see from the list, a lot of great projects have gotten some pretty significant financial support from the governor's office and through the legislature. You as individual nonprofits in our community have also had some success in reaching out through your own channels. I think where we know we have the greatest success is when we can speak together as much as possible with a single voice about what's important in our community. And that's another goal that we want to get out of having a listening session like this. So stadium improvements, they're coming in an effort to bring affiliated minor league baseball back to Frederick. Traffic calming, which has been a significant issue in neighborhoods all over the city with speeding. I mentioned flood control, the downtown hotel and conference center project, which has been a long time initiative of several administrations in the city, and our police headquarters project. If you're driving past the former state office building on All Saints Street, you're seeing the progress that's being made to move our police department out of the 25,000 square feet they have right now, which is about 20 years too small for them in terms of what they need, into about 65,000 square feet, a department that will better be able to serve our community. What we're really looking for from all of you is your feedback and input. So there's a number of different ways in which you can do that. The QR code here will take you to an online survey that gives you an opportunity to weigh in with some priorities that have been ongoing that we've identified in the city of Frederick that are important, and to get feedback from you. But there are also opportunities in that survey for open-ended responses for you to tell us what might not be on our radar but should be. I say that to say that not every idea is an idea that we can necessarily place number one on a priority list and move forward in any given year. What I do know, if we don't know what our nonprofit community is looking at, what our nonprofit community is interested in, there's no chance that we would have to advocate for that. So we really want to be here to listen to you in terms of what is important to you. There are paper forms as well if a QR code doesn't work for you for whatever reason and you'd rather submit that information by paper. We also have a microphone here today, and we certainly invite you to come forward and share your thoughts there as well. Again, the other two options are available if maybe you're shy, because I'm looking around this room and seeing a bunch of people who I know are shy. You might not be ready to come to the microphone and speak your mind. But we're here to listen today. I'm going to take a seat back here on this stool. We'll ask you to come forward in as orderly a manner as you can possibly muster, and share with us your thoughts and ideas about where our legislative priorities ought to go for the legislative session that will start in January. Again, our conversations with the governor's office and legislative leadership are starting in the next couple of months. Now is the time for us to get on their radar with the projects and activities that are priorities. To be clear, legislative asks that you may have can be both for dollars. We certainly don't want to discourage you from that. But perhaps even in your own worlds, you've discovered that those legislative changes that could make the work that you do more effective or efficient. We want to hear about those as well. Our advocacy is about both dollars and policy. So with that, I'm going to take a seat and organize yourselves accordingly to come to the microphone. Thank you so much for being here. I know that it is not easy in the nonprofit realm to take time away from the work that you need to do every day. But your being here is important, and we think that it's important that part of what we do is to listen. So thanks so much for your participation this morning. We really appreciate it.
Good morning. My name is Peter Brehm. I'm treasurer for the Student Homelessness Initiative Partnership. From a SHIP perspective, and understanding that just because we ask for it doesn't mean it can be funded or that it can be funded this year, and also acknowledging that the things that SHIP is interested in may not have a state basis, but it may be a city or a county basis. Our legislative wishes would be to maintain and expand affordable housing resources, and this includes rental assistance, eviction prevention, streamlining the permitting process for affordable housing, supporting equitable rent practices. We're hearing about inequitable rent practices for people who are using vouchers, and expanding the affordable housing inventory, which I understand is a group activity and not just a city activity. Second, we would endorse the provision and perhaps even require translation services at all city operational levels, not only with ASL, but also Spanish and other languages. We have, everything I attend says we have something like 30 or 40 different languages spoken in the county. And so those are important stakeholders for our democratic and city processes. Third, better access to transit, including improvements to the covered bus stops. I know that was on the printed document that we received, but SHIP would certainly endorse that because a lot of our clients rely upon that transit. And then lastly, to expand DHSS services to serve youth, including unaccompanied youth. And in other walks in my life, I've heard that there's a need for expanded DHS support for behavioral health services for a broad range of people who are in the home insecurity or homeless system. So that's the SHIP wish list. Thank you.
Hello there. I'm Liz Chateau. I'm director of the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area. Thank you for this opportunity. I mainly want to put something on your radar screens. The Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area is a nonprofit organization. We serve nonprofits and government entities in the name of heritage tourism, working very closely with our tourism organization in each county. And we are certified by the Maryland Heritage Areas Authority, and that's the program that I need to talk to you about today. We have a wide range of services, but one of the things that we're able to do is to bring to our nonprofit partners and our government partners within our boundaries the opportunity, the eligibility to pursue grants through the Maryland Heritage Areas program. That is an independent agency within the executive branch of state government. It has to live somewhere. It's tiny, so it's under the Department of Planning. But the money that we're able to facilitate here in the city of Frederick can't come to any of our partners if we're not existing. But also, I wanted to say, we just recently announced, the state recently announced the latest round of grants. The state, for this purpose, has $5.1 million currently that they can give to grant and in the way of grants, and that's across the entire state. It comes from property transfer tax, so it's not coming out of the general fund. But this year alone, there were $11 million in requests that were deemed both eligible and worthy. So I have in the group here, I've got a few of you that have been disappointed over the years because I had to say, you put in a great grant. We were happy to support you. The money didn't stretch far enough. I also have a few of you that your organizations have been able to benefit a lot. When you walk out the doors and you see that amazing marquee that has been installed at the Weinberg Center, that was a $100,000 grant that we were able to facilitate a piece of that project, but an important piece. Several $100,000 have gone to the Arch Society over the years, the Heritage Frederick, Visit Frederick's Visitor Center, and even Asbury Church got some preservation money from us. So there's a lot that we can do, but we need more. So I'm mainly putting this on your radar screen because there is an initiative underway. More funding for the MHAA, the Maryland Heritage Areas Authority, requires a legislative change. That is being crafted now. So I don't have a lot of details, but I really hope that all of you and the city of Frederick will come on board as supporting us, because the more that we are able to bring funds into the city of Frederick, the more we see return on that. And we know by way of recent studies that our heritage area brings $450.2 million in economic contribution to our region. We bring almost 6,400 jobs that are sustained or supported, and $60 million in local and state tax revenue. So it's an investment that pays off. And also, nonprofits, if you want to chat with me, there are lots of creative ways that we can talk about projects that you might come to us for funding for. So track me down. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz.
Hi, thank you. I'm Christine Moser. I'm with the Performing Arts. And I'm talking about, I'm representing more than just my company. But I definitely wanted to start with, when you're talking about low-income housing and moderate income, whatever housing you're doing, is to include artist housing, like a percentage of it, maybe artist housing, artist salaries are like this. And so having something that can be either based on their salary yearly or just a rate where they can have that up and down income would be really, really helpful. So I don't know if the state can give funding to that type of housing. And the other thing is, not to sound like a broken record, but it would be really lovely to have a performing arts center that was affordable. And by affordable, I mean, it could even be very similar to this, because this is an amazing space, a little dark, but really quite amazing. But just one sample is like last winter, we did a 2-day show, and then we had 2 hours of tech, and that cost $2,200. I mean, it was $1,100 a night. And I have all of the stuff to show that. And that's just not for a small nonprofit. I feel like we need, I know there's sliding scale, and I know on paper it looks good, but by the time there's the ticketing and this and that and the other thing, it was $2,200 for 2 days. And so if it can't be this, if the state could put money into this, or if the state could do maybe a smaller one where it could be more affordable or something for the performing arts, because the performing arts in Frederick are suffering with lack of space and things like that. So that I just wanted to throw out. And also to thank you for caring about the arts, and for supporting nonprofits, because, my company benefits from a city that values the arts. And so I need to make sure I say that we're all benefit from having a city that cares about nonprofits and the nonprofit arts. So even though I'm a broken record with this one thing, I'm super, super grateful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm April Sandy from Justice Jobs of Maryland. I hate talking in front of people, but I'll do it. I just want to thank also Mayor O'Connor for what you've done already to support transitional housing in the city, to make more available options for low-income folks. That's really important. I don't know if the jail is in the city, but we work with people coming in re-entry, and a major issue that we're having right now with the Frederick County Jail is they don't have sidewalks. And so what happens is people leaving for work release can't walk on the sidewalks to then get a job across the street where the movie theaters are, like over there. So they're unable to get, from the jail to walk on the job because there is no sidewalks. So that's a huge concern that we have, that we would like sidewalks put in around where the jail is so folks can walk to work. That's really, really important. And The other thing that we're concerned about is we would really like to see Medicaid cover more dentures because a lot of our job seekers can't get the dentures and they only will take out half the teeth one part of the year and then the other half the other part of the year. And we're dealing with folks in an opioid crisis that need teeth to get self-esteem, to get a job. It's critically important. So I really want to see, more coverage or resources for dentures. And then let's see, this may be a very unpopular opinion, but I live downtown. I'm a townie. And although I'm, support cannabis being legal, I definitely don't like when I walk downtown working and all of downtown smells like cannabis. So I would like to see more regulations on that because I don't think that our city should be represented by smelling like cannabis for people coming downtown. I just think it's just not a good path to be on. So I'm very concerned about that. I would also like more specific regulations on food stamps because the state changed food stamps where they now require you work 20 hours a week. But folks transitioning out of various situations, I think they need to go back to the table and figure out at the state level if someone can receive food stamps if they're like in job training or something like that. Because just to say you have to have 20 hours a week, we're really running into some issues. I went to court with one of my clients a couple months ago in Anne Arundel County, and there were 7 cases in a row where people were arrested for first-time offenders stealing food. So I'm very concerned about the food that we have available for people in the city with the new regulations with Section 8. And let's see. And then lastly, I live in the downtown district, and I would like to see more money put into the downtown historical district. Because if you look at all the money we put into where the businesses are downtown versus the historical district on the other side of the creek, which historically has been for African Americans in years past, and it's now, transition. There's a lot of sidewalks that need to be redone. We don't have proper lighting there, and I feel like we should invest in, the historical district, specifically even have possibly signage where people know they're coming in because it's going to bring more families in and invest in those lower income properties that need to be redone. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, April. Next, do I see a hand there?
And once. Eaton.
Hi, my name is Dan Jacoby. I want to talk about something I've worked on both in big city when I lived in New York City and small town when I lived in Shoreline, Washington, a city about 3/4 the size of Frederick, and that's affordable housing. And one of the problems, and this is something I think we need to talk with our state legislatures about, is that basically every source of funding for affordable housing is back end. The developer has to actually bring the units to market, and then they get the money in the form of tax credits or voucher money. But in order to build, in order to bring the units to market, they have to borrow money from banks and they have to pay interest. If we have ways of providing the money on the front end before they have to borrow it, we get more bang for our buck, because that means less money going as interest to the banks. We can get more units for the same or less money. I think that's obviously something that the city probably can't do on its own, but maybe we can start talking with our state reps and see if we can find ways to create front-end funding for affordable housing. We'll get more bang for our buck that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another one of those people who doesn't really like to talk in front of a bunch of people. First of all, I'm Karen Cannon with Mobilize Frederick, and I want to thank the mayor for all the work that he's been doing on climate change, accepting the Climate Response and Resilience Report, developing city climate action plans, and all the other work that's been going on. So that being said, there's a lot more to do, as we've all seen this wonderful summer with the triple-digit temperatures. So there are several pieces of state legislation that we're watching and would like for the city and others to support. One of them is called the Renew Act. It's basically kind of like a climate change super fund. It would require fossil fuel producing companies to basically put money into a fund that would be used to mitigate the effects of climate change and help the state to meet its climate goals. I think this is really important and could help the city fund some of the resilience projects that are going to be needed as climate change continues to worsen over the next few years. Another piece of state legislation that was introduced last year that didn't get passed but is going to be reintroduced this year is called the Better Buildings Act. So it gets us closer to all electric buildings, which is very important in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, also improving indoor air quality. I don't know if folks know, but about 12% of childhood asthma is caused by basically the pollution coming from natural gas in homes. So moving us more quickly to all electric buildings, improving energy efficiency in buildings, which will also save people a lot of money. A lot of folks worry about, strengthening building codes, possibly increasing the cost of houses. But if you think about how much money can be saved over a number of years by homeowners when their houses are built better, it makes a lot more sense in the long run. There is also a state piece of legislation around increasing composting. It would require an additional fee for trash haulers for their tipping fee, basically. But that the money coming from that fee would go into community projects to increase composting on farms and also reducing food waste. So there are a lot of different components to that program. And I know the city has been running a composting pilot for the last couple of years that has recently expanded quite a bit. So we'd love to be able to see more of the of just general statewide and countywide composting programs and using some of the funds from this to help get food to the people who need it rather than seeing it thrown in the trash and creating greenhouse gas emissions. One other aspect or item that we're going to be tracking very closely is around data centers. I don't know that there's ever going to be a proposal for a data center to actually be built in the city of Frederick, but they are being developed in the county, and they require huge amounts of energy and water, which is likely to impact all of us in terms of our electric rates. A lot of you are probably following the news about the new transmission lines that are being proposed for southern Frederick County. So I think this is something that we really want to keep an eye on. The state has recently created a statewide data center work group. So we're going to be looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. I think they've only met once so far, so I don't know too much about it yet. And then finally, in terms of budget requests, I think it would be a really good idea to be looking at funding for what are called microgrids that could be used as like cooling centers or, just basically emergency centers that would be powered by solar panels with battery backup storage so that folks, if there's a big storm or if there are terrible heat waves, so that folks who don't have air conditioning in their homes would be able to come to a safe place until things, get better. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
So it's like that's
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor, for hosting this event, allowing us the opportunity to be able to have a voice. And I wish you the best of luck in prioritizing all of these things we're asking for. My name is Chris McDowell. I'm the director of the Golden Mile Alliance. A few things that we would like to look at from the capital side is some placemaking and some iconic sense of place on the west side so that our west side residents have somewhere to kind of gather around and have a point of pride. From the grant side of things, we would like the ability to be able to refurbish some existing buildings that are lacking some infrastructure. Maybe it's not only fire safety, but also plumbing and things like that. So we have a lot of buildings that are on the west side that are lacking that. In order to find new businesses to come in, we need the ability to be able to increase that infrastructure. And obviously there's a cost associated with that. Another thing that we would like to see worked on would be some public art, murals, things like that. Again, another point of pride for the west side. And we'd also like to find a way to incentivize our private landowners to get some bus stops with shelters and benches. All of the bus stops that take place on the west side are all on private property, but they have no incentive to actually place any sort of bus shelter or bus bench, and that's obviously a quality of life thing. Finally, from the traffic division, we feel that having a traffic division within the police department would assist us in helping us keep down some pedestrian safety and allowing some traffic calming that not only happens through planning and development, but also with enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Catherine Dorsey. This is Camille. We heard about affordable housing a couple of times, and I just want to echo that. And I think it's something that the city and the county and state all have to work together because when we look at affordable housing, we're not just talking about inventory, we're talking about rent stabilization, rent control. There's levels of discrimination that skirt just under the legal limit. So the rent hikes are so high, so people are getting priced out of their vouchers, for example, or you have folks who are on a voucher and their portion of the rent might be $91, but then we're looking at security deposits of $5,000, which is astronomical, of course. And even when people are on vouchers, because of the rent hikes, they are seeing that their portion of the voucher is increasing. So it's not just based off of their income, it's because the housing voucher is not high enough to cover what the rent increases are. So we need to look at ways in which we can control that. And then on top of that, when we look at like the homeless population and people who are economically challenged, we're talking about transportation. It's not just expanding public transportation. I saw there was something about incentivizing bicycles. I know I'm from a big city where you can go and you can rent a bike over here, return it over here. So some type of rideshare bike program I think would be beneficial because a lot of our folks can't even afford to get a bicycle. And even though transportation is free, sometimes it doesn't run on Sundays. It doesn't run after certain times. It doesn't go everywhere people need to go. And so if we can expand even just bicycle access, some type of ride sharing program, I think that would help a lot of the people who are economically challenged as well. And then, of course, we always need expanded access to like mental health care. A lot of the programs, sometimes to access them, you already have to have a diagnosis or some type of disability where there are folks who don't have a diagnosis or there are folks who are in crisis and need that assistance and they can't access it. And we're seeing a lot of people that they just fall in that gap. So, you're not a senior, you don't have children, but you're still in need. And they kind of fall in this gap where they can't access services. So we just need to look at ways in which we can expand services for all people who are economically disadvantaged, not just those who fit a particular mode. So I think those are just some priorities we can look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
There. I forgot that I did have the Section 8 thing on my list. And I've been talking to our Congress folks and senators about this for the past couple years. We really need to raise the inflation with the Section 8 voucher. So we need to do that. And it needs to be like a federal thing because people are losing their Section 8 vouchers every single day. And they've been waiting for like 10 years to get their Section 8 voucher. And I'll give you a great example. I run into this all the time is the Section 8 voucher for 21701 is $1,450, somewhere around that mark. So in order for someone to use that voucher, they have to find an apartment that includes electric, gas, whatever their utilities are, which means that they have to then, if they don't, it doesn't include it, then you're only allowed to use that voucher for about $1,200. And we all know that you're not going to find a place for $1,200. So then what happens is they get extension after extension after extension, and they can't move it into another county unless they've used that voucher for 1 year, and then they can move it into another county. So we're getting people that have been on lists forever, waiting and waiting and waiting, and they've shut down the housing list, except for seniors, and they're reopening it again because there's just so many. So then what happens is they're just losing their voucher entirely, and then they can't get back on the list. So this is something that needs to happen at the federal level, that they need to raise the Section 8 limit so it's in line with inflation. So then we don't run into this problem because, as you know, housing has gotten out of control. So I just wanted to add that because I forgot to put that on my thing. So thank you.
Thank you. Other hands? And then we'll come here to you, Heather.
My name is Danica Warden. I'm from Each One Teach One, Inc. We are a local nonprofit that does social emotional learning work with youth using yoga, meditation, and mindful activities. First, I want to say thank you, Mayor O'Connor, for always supporting our organization since our inception in 2020. And I just wanted to briefly switch gears. So again, we do social emotional learning with youth, families in Frederick. And so mental health is a very important aspect, obviously, of the community, of society. And I just wanted to make sure that you all are including mental health and funding and just support around that. And not only for youth, because we can support the youth and we can talk to them about really amazing things, but if they go home and the people that they are living with and who are supporting them are not privy to what they're learning, it really doesn't make any sense. And also for educators and people who spend a lot of time with our youth and our children. So I just said all that to say all these things are important, but I just want to make sure that we realize the little ones are our future, and none of these things matter if our youth are going to take over but don't have the skills to do it. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Heather Goddard, and I'm, excuse me, president of the board of a nonprofit called East Frederick Rising. East Frederick Rising is a citizen-based, volunteer, nonprofit organization of people who care about the future of Frederick. EFR engages with the community through personal and civic dialogue. As Frederick grows, we advocate for projects which advance our vision for long-term livability and sustainability in East Frederick. Two important infrastructure projects that have remained undeveloped for far too long are the East Street Rails with Trails project and the redevelopment of the East Street corridor. The City of Frederick's comprehensive plan champions a vision of connection and multimodal transportation, a vision we share. We work with the building community to build residential and commercial projects that result in economic vitality and communities that are walkable, connected, vibrant, safe, attractive, and sustainable. We prioritize projects that create a sense of local context while satisfying regional demand for employment, housing, and cultural amenities. But in order to expect that level of quality from our building community, we must take up the mantle and demonstrate our commitment to do our part as a city. Infrastructure is critical to supporting the community. When we build quality multimodal infrastructure projects adjacent to the property owner's land, we show them that the city values the community and its residents' safety and demonstrates that we're committed to strengthening their home or property investment. When we invest in our city, homeowners invest in our city, property owners invest in our city, and our city thrives. Historically, we've seen how some or many cities have been built in ways that shut out Black and minority people from accessing opportunities. From barriers to funding homeownership, like excluding Black World War II servicemen from obtaining VA loans, to banks using redlining practices to exclude Black borrowers from certain parts of town, to infrastructure projects that built highways that divided and destroyed Black neighborhoods. We see in hindsight that you can build discrimination into our policy, but in the same turn, you can build access and opportunity for everyone into a city as well. When cities are built using an equity lens, it expands opportunities for everyone. Safe city streets have sidewalks and bike paths. Children can get to school, people can get to work or transit. Tree-lined streets will cool our cities and make walking and biking tolerable in hot months. Bus shelters provide shelter and dignity. Complete streets help alleviate traffic congestion due to growth. East Street has many hundreds of new residential units being built along it, including affordable units. Access for these new homes to safely travel down East Street to reach downtown, get to transit or to school is essential. Rents are high, and offering people alternate, safe, reliable avenues to ride their bike or walk will truly help our community. The Planning Commission issues recommendations for funding, and for several years has requested funding for the East Street corridors redesign. East Street has sidewalk gaps that have been identified as first priority for completing. So let's get it done.
Good morning. My name is Ken Oldham. I'm the CEO of United Way of Frederick County. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. United Way supports ALICE households, those who are asset limited, income constrained, but employed. They are working families who are unable to afford a basic cost of living. We do a considerable amount of data research at United Way, and we've discovered that 17% of working families use public transportation. We were particularly disappointed last year when the state of Maryland put public transportation on the chopping block. Our understanding is that's going to happen again. Well, we would hope for when it does come around that we have a community-wide effort to tell the state of Maryland that that is simply unacceptable. Imagine our businesses having a 17% smaller workforce because their employees cannot get to work. We also understand that an additional 8% of our Alice families rely on Lyft, Uber, and taxi cabs. That is why United Way has created the Ride United Network. Kat, you mentioned a ride-sharing program. We have the infrastructure in place to support Alice households to reduce the costs. Oftentimes, our Alice families are paying somewhere between 20%, 30%, sometimes 50% of their day's wages just to get to work. That also should be unacceptable. Our only need is investment. The infrastructure ranging from scheduling the rides all the way through data collection and analysis and reporting is in place. We just need investment. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm TJ from the Asian American Center of Frederick. I'm also a frequent visitor of the city of Frederick. As you know, from the many things that Asian American Center does here in the city, part of it is performance arts and cultural enrichment of the city residents. I very much appreciate the development of the West Side Regional Park, and I believe there are plans for community space and performance space there. But I want to second Chris's comments about the Golden Mile and perhaps improving that area by bringing both art exhibits, murals, and performance art space, community space on the mile itself, because it is very convenient for the residents of the Golden Mile, many of whom are immigrants and those who are underrepresented. A lot of rich communities and culture there, and I think something that Frederick City can be proud of. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am Amanda Whitener from Women to Women Mentoring. Not so much a legislative proposal, but more of an appeal to this group of nonprofit leaders. There's so much rich nonprofit work, so much community development that I would love to see us do more together. Think of, Frederick as the second largest city in the state. How can we be the front line of showing the state how to do it the best? How can we work together, partner together, share resources, understand what we do best, share that with each other so that we're all helping each other rather than staying sometimes hyper-local. It's very easy to stay in your bubble and focus on your one thing, but think of all of the other ways that we can benefit from working with each other.
I'll only use that last comment just as an opportunity to once again say thank you to the nonprofit community in Frederick. I think one of the interesting things about how we know ourselves to be and how the rest of the world sees us is really interesting, because I have the opportunity and members of my team to travel around the state, and elsewhere in Maryland, they look at Frederick as sort of the pinnacle of collaboration and partnership. So I think relative to everyone else that we work with, we do it quite well. But that doesn't mean that we're perfect. And I think the opportunity is always there for us to figure out how we take it to the next step, how we can be even better tomorrow than we are today. I'm really hopeful that these kinds of regular conversations, whether it's as part of a budget process in the city of Frederick or as part of this legislative process in the city of Frederick, this kind of engagement, as I said at the beginning, is a bit of a work in progress. And so we very much appreciate your partnership, your being here. We're interested in your feedback, not just in terms of the specifics of why we're here today, but about these processes in general and how we can make sure that the work that we do in the city is accessible to you and the work that you do every day, to our residents. We had one of these sessions with residents generally, with our business community. That's why Frederick, I think, works as well as any place in the state, because we do have these ongoing communications. I know we can do more and we can be better, and that's part of why we're here today, is to make sure that we're doing the right things to try and be better. I want to give a shout out to my staff in the city of Frederick. A lot of people said thank you to the mayor. And while I appreciate that, I'm quick to say that mayor is a title. The job belongs to 800 employees in the city of Frederick who actually do this work every day. And so a lot of folks in our communications team worked really hard to pull these listening sessions together, to arrange the venues, to provide, some light snacks, to create this opportunity. They make me look good every single day. And so I'm enormously appreciative of all of them. And again, just want to say thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here today. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful Thursday and maybe a dry weekend. Thank you.